Good evening. This is Martin Comtois. We're doing a new series for you, the inner planets, the archetypes and their cycles. We're starting with Mercury, the guide of souls, the psychopomp, moving into Capricorn on December 1st. Of course, our first try at this new series on the inner planets would start with Mercury, and Mercury would complicate things, as you would know it, because Mercury comes into Capricorn on the 1st of December, but then it returns into Sagittarius and then goes for its cycle and then returns into Capricorn. And so technically it's entering on December 1st and will leave Capricorn on February 5th, but then it spends about 3 weeks from the 13th to the January 1st in the Sagittarius. So we'll flesh that out. Diana, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm well. I'm excited to talk about Mercury and always integrate more of that understanding. Mercury is a very, I don't know, hard to say. I appreciate aspects of Mercury. It makes sense in a natal chart, but in like a day-to-day life, I find it very the trickster, which can be tricky at times. And retrogrades are something I definitely welcome, but at the same time have a little apprehension towards, probably just because of pop astrology and the modern way of looking at retrogrades.
Well, so the point of this video series that we're starting is to flesh out the inner planets as they move through the signs. And so then there's two things that we have to learn. One is Mercury in our own chart.
Yes.
So what is Mercury in our own chart? How do you see Mercury when you look at your chart?
Mercury, for me, Mercury is in Libra and the 11th house. And I find Mercury is the ability to think and communicate and balance both sides. But then I sometimes have learned it's about balancing both sides of the psyche, but then also in my life, Mercury being in Libra, I find there's a lot of weighing all the options and balancing both sides of my life or both sides of my psyche, and there's a lot of that.
So in popular astrology, the basic aspects of Mercury is that it's how we communicate and gather information. So it's associated with the intellect and our thinking abilities. In alchemy, Mercury goes a step further. In Jungian work, we are introduced with Mercurius, the psychopomp. Psychopomp means the guide of soul. So this word psychopomp comes from Greek mythology. Mercury the psychopomp is the Mercury that accompanies the soul to his experience of judgment and rebirth. So he's the guide of souls. He takes the soul by the hand and brings him into the other world to decide where he's going. So he becomes this guide of that soul. So that's the psychopompus, the guide of soul. In alchemy, and this is in the Mysterium Conjunctionis by Jung, you have the sun. So the glyph of Mercury is the sun and the cross of matter, but the little hat on top is the moon. So we have the moon, the sun, and the cross of matter. So then Mercury in alchemy is the priest that unites the sacred marriage of the sun and the moon together. He is the uniting third which is a very important role. So then in alchemy, Mercury is the prima matera. It's like the equivalent in Christianity would be like the Holy Ghost. So then
Holy Trinity.
yes, but he's the uniting principle in the Holy Trinity. And so then the psychopomp, the Mercury then plays a very important role in the transformation. Not only does he gather information and how we communicate, but that's where we get it to acknowledge the trickster. The trickster means that wherever you need to go by crook or by trick, Mercury will get you to do that, so that it's what you need to create the union of the masculine and the feminine within yourself. Therefore, Mercury may trick you off path to think that you're going off path, but actually it's him guiding you to the necessary experience. So then he has this guiding role. Another name for it in Jungian psychology would be the transcendent function. He leads you to transcend the material world. So that's a very esoteric definition of Mercury.
I love it. It reminds me of, I guess I have a little bit more of like I'm excited to upgrade my definitions. I think of Mercury, I think a lot of like learning the Greek mythology, and how Mercury in Roman mythology is Mercury, but in Greek it was Hermes, and he was always helping everybody kind of accomplish their desires, and sometimes it was very like tricky and against the gods, and sometimes it was for the gods and for the gods' best interest, but he was just sharing information, and that brought me back to how Mercury is also the fastest planet that moves around the sun, and it's kind of like the helper of the sun. So as you're saying, like the helper of the psyche.
Right. We also mentioned in the last Mercury retrograde video, we mentioned about how Mercury acts as the guide for Odysseus in the Odyssey, where he helps him, avoid the tricks and the enchantment of Circe, who has enchanted and turned all of his friends into pigs. And Mercury comes and he says, here, you need this medicine and you need to do this and this and this and that. So in that sense, Mercury is our guide in the process of individuation. And it's probably the most important. So knowing where your Mercury is and having a very good relationship with that Mercury, not only where it is in your chart, what sign, what house, but also what aspects does it make to the other planets, and especially to the moon and to the sun. So that's Mercury in the personal chart. Now, Mercury in transit. So Mercury in transit means as Mercury comes through, then it has a very special role, and we'll flesh that out a little more. Let's look at that slide that we have.
Sure. I guess quickly, as we go over the basics of Mercury first, Mercury is a ruler of two of the astrology symbols. One of them is Gemini, and the other is Virgo. In your story,
that's kind of why I wanted to do the slide.
Okay. Well, I'll share my story for after.
Yeah, no, keep going. You're doing great.
I'll wait for the right time. It's coming. So retrograde's coming. So
here you go. So you're okay. So go.
Well, so what I was going to say is this is kind of the next thing. That story fits really well.
But you see, you're introducing the rulership. And so here you have Virgo and you have Gemini, the twins. So Mercury is the ruler of Virgo as the medicine person, and Gemini, the twins.
It reminded me too of, so the one story of helping Odysseus, and then the other story that I know well is Mercury is what gave Perseus the winged feet to be able to kill Medusa, which reminds me of this, like Mercury's quick transportation and like short travel.
Well, if you look at so one, he's the scepter that he's carrying, that's the caduceus. The caduceus is the two snakes around, and that's the symbol of medicine. And then if you look, his shoes, he's got wings on his shoes, and he's got wings on his helmet too. So that he can go from heaven to hell in a flash at the speed of the mind. So that's Mercury, the archetype, and knowing Gemini and Virgo as being the sign that Mercury rules, there's the two different aspects of Mercury. Mercury as the good and the bad, the twins, the good and the bad twin, and then Virgo, the harmony of nature. And it's interesting how they depict Virgo as a siren.
I see that.
Yeah, oh, very interesting. Woodcuts from the 15th century. So now we looked at Mercury, the archetype. Now we're going to flesh out what does it look like when Mercury is in Capricorn and when Mercury is in Sagittarius. So what does Mercury in Capricorn feel like to you?
When I think of Mercury in Capricorn, I think of Mercury, our ability to communicate and receive information, and Capricorn being usually associated and connected with like hard work, and it's a cardinal sign, an earth sign. So there's a lot of being put to task and a lot of getting the to-do list done and making sure the projects are on their way and thinking through the projects and kind of that kind of reality.
Well, we were talking about in the last video on Sagittarius, we were talking about this point between, you know, the winter solstice, you know, the Sagittarius meaning, and then Capricorn giving form to that meaning. So then Capricorn is interested in giving form to meaning. So, you know, so then building the cathedrals and the libraries and the museums, you know, that's, you know, all of the things that have been developed in Sagittarius, Capricorn seeks to give form to it. It's the ability, you know, it's ruled by Saturn, and it's the ability to create and to give form to the highest vision of Capricorn. So then Mercury coming in the Capricorn, then the psychopomp, the guide of soul, is really concerned with giving form to the highest vision. And that Mercury is going back and forth between Capricorn and Sagittarius. You know, this is a really good opportunity for us to really look at this. And we were talking about this at the last video, but we didn't really flesh it out, is that the signs themselves are mythical stories. They're expressions of myths, and the planets themselves are the archetypes, the archetypal structure, you know, so the actors on the stage of life, whereas the signs themselves are mythological structures. There's a story, a myth, the evolution of Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces is a mythological story of evolution. And the planets, as they move through that story, they get to flesh it out for us. So then with Mercury coming into Capricorn and going back into Sagittarius, we have the quest for meaning. You know, so then Mercury has been through Sagittarius, exploring meaning. Now it's moving into Capricorn. We need to give form to that meaning. But then it's going to go back retrograde into Capricorn because it forgot something. So then we're going to get to revisit meaning before we can again give form. So that's kind of Mercury in transit versus Mercury in your own chart. Does that make sense?
It does.
Questions about that or anything? Observations?
No. The one thing that popped in my head was Mercury and Capricorn remind me of like a writer, and like writing a book or writing the meaning of your life or autobiographies, or even just like a story that you really need to write out, just because Mercury is about the word and sharing communication.
Definitely being disciplined in our communication and our expression, and into this role of the priest that unites the masculine and the feminine. Right? That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Like the discipline practice.
Yeah.
I think that that's really every year for the winter solstice, I try to go into a practice, on both sides. We have entered into, the darkest 2 months of the year. Sagittarius and Capricorn are on both sides of the winter solstice. And so they're the darkest month of the year. And so I usually do a retreat around that time. And so with Mercury in Capricorn, going back into Sagittarius, back into Capricorn, and again, that's going to take us all the way till, the new year. So fascinating stuff, huh?
Till February.
Mm-hmm.
Those dates. Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Well, let's go look at the chart that we have for folks, and that's a loaded chart. And I mean, we're going to the now, and what we've been going through all fall long. Of course, the chart of December 1st. This is chart of December 1st, when Mercury enters Capricorn. This is the chart that we have on the table right now, and you look at the complexity of it. And there are a few things that announces itself. Most importantly, the moon plays such an important role in a grand cross with Jupiter, Venus, Pluto. There's
Jupiter. Oh,
yeah, it's like the grand cross there. The opposition between Venus and Jupiter has passed, but the squares are still there. Whoops. The squares are still there. And so, that Venus, Pluto, Moon, T-square, that to me is a preview of coming attraction. It really puts an emphasis on the need for redemption of the feminine archetype, the myth of Persephone. We're going to see at the beginning of next year a Venus-Mars-Pluto conjunction at the beginning of February. And this is kind of a precursor to it. We have a Sun-Mars conjunction right now, and Mars and Venus both will travel together and will all make angle to Mercury. And then Mercury, Venus, and Mars. We'll see Mercury first make a conjunction with Pluto. Then we'll see the Sun make a conjunction with Pluto. And then we'll see Venus and Mars come together and make a conjunction with Pluto. So that's kind of the flavor of the beginning of winter and the end of fall. It's a very Plutonian, and I don't know if you've been feeling that in your own process, but there's something very Plutonian about what we're all going through. Even this full moon that we just went through, it had the Plutonian need for death and rebirth seems to be weighing heavily on everybody, huh?
Yeah, I guess maybe because it's in Capricorn, but it's probably making aspect to the new moon because we're so close to Libra. I mean Aquarius. But I also find it interesting that we're having this time of needing to really reckon with Venus's needs coming up after having such a Mars-driven time, with Mars conjunct the Sun for so long, and Mars aspecting all the new moons and full moons for quite a while now.
Mm-hmm. that Mars, huh? I wanted back to the chart. There's something that I just saw, and that is the finger of God between Mercury, the yod, between Mercury, Saturn, and the moon. And you see there's a little bit of two green lines that go to Pluto. So then the yod is really complete, the tier of God. So then the Mercury and the Saturn, Mercury and Saturn are the two most important planets in alchemy. And so there's something very alchemical about these times now, where we're being asked to kind of usher in the big change that the collective is going through, and to be an example of that, and to actually experience it in our own lives. That seems to be a very important signature to our times.
Yeah, I agree. I see it a lot in life right now, everywhere.
Okay, let's go next. Where are we going next? Oh yeah, so one of the things that are going to be really important during this Mercury retrograde section is the conjunction of Mercury and Mars. We're going to experience two in the coming months, in the coming month and a half. And we experienced a third one on October 3rd, where Mercury and Mars make it a conjunction right before Mercury's last retrograde. And now Mercury is going retrograde, and it will make a conjunction while retrograde and a conjunction after going retrograde, after being direct with Mars. And so what is a Mars-Mercury conjunction for you?
When I hear Mars-Mercury conjunction, I think of how Mercury is the connector of, like you said, like the connector of the lovers, or the priest that unites the marriage. And so if it's circling around or connecting with Mars, I think of like new communication coming to the Mars in our psyche, and how we assert ourselves, and maybe new information on our work and how to assert ourselves and work in the world.
We did a video a number of moons ago of Mars and the quest for individuation. You know how Mars, in the alchemical perspective, it's the sun with an arrow out. So it's the first planet that isn't between the sun and the moon, right? Well, no, the sun and the earth. Well, the moon, because the moon turns around the earth, and Mercury and Venus stand between the sun and the earth and the moon, then basically. And then the first planet is Mars. And so then these four planets, moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, they represent the inner psyche. And Mars is, okay, now I'm going into the world and doing my work into the world. Mars and Mercury in conjunction, if you see them in a chart, if somebody has a Mercury-Mars conjunction in their chart, what would that be like character-wise?
Maybe quick to respond and react, and maybe a really good communicator. I'd see like a ability to communicate their needs. That's kind of where I get stumped.
What a very gifted actor, right? An ability to that the Mars hero expressed in the, you know, in so many different possibilities through Mercury.
Right.
Mars in Gemini is usually a writer. So just like you saw, you know, Mercury in Capricorn as a writer, also Mars and Mercury would give Mercury the energy to write and to do the writing and to do the practice and to communicate and to do the spiritual practice to create the union. So Mars would give courage to Mercury, and Mercury would give creative talents to Mars. And so that would be the Mercury-Mars conjunction. And we're going to see two of them during this cycle of Mercury in Capricorn, blah, 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 blah.
You can also see them being a good, just athletic, like very athletic.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mars is like our muscles and Mercury is our nervous system. So there's a strength in the muscles and the nervous system. They work together well.
Especially as Jupiter is angled to that.
Oh, yeah.
Then you'll have the captain of the team. Then you'll have the captain of the team. So look at your chart. Where's Mercury? Where's Venus? Where's Jupiter?
All right. Shall we look at the dates coming up for all these connections?
Okay, that's going to be overwhelming. So many dates. So real quick, we'll put these on the comment, not on the comment section, but in the description section. So if you want to access these dates, you can see them. But basically December 1st, Mercury goes into Capricorn.
And it will be in Capricorn until February 5th. But in the meantime, because it's a retrograde, it's going to go back into Sagittarius from December 23rd to January 15th.
Well, all those dates will tell us here. So the December, whoa!
He's jumping on me.
So December 12th, Mercury stations retrograde at 8 degrees Capricorn. Then on the 23rd,
Mercury will conjunct the sun at 0 degrees Capricorn.
So then right at that point where Mercury is returning into Sagittarius, there's going to be the Sun-Mercury conjunction, December 23rd. That's also right after the solstice.
And right before the full moon.
And the Mercury-Sun conjunction in the retrograde cycle is the most important moment of the retrograde cycle. You know, we talked about combustion before. You know, Mercury gets combust with, you know, within the 1 degree of the sun there. And so then at the solstice, we'll have a Mercury conjunction with the sun, Mercury turning retrograde. And so that's going to be a very important point of the cycle. So you want to keep track of December 1st, December 12th, December 23rd.
Especially December 23rd, because it's, at least personally, I find that my brain gets kind of fried. It's like scrambled eggs and I can't think as clear or as straight often when Mercury is conjunct the sun. And being right before Christmas, I could see that being a time that's pretty high energy and wanting your wits about you. So be gentle on yourself and watch yourself.
Also falling on the solstice will make it especially important to do some rituals and to use the Mercury function as the guide of souls to look for the direction that you need in the coming, you know, year ahead.
I love that, yes. And then after that full moon on the 26th, it'll be December 27th, Mercury will conjunct Mars, making its second conjunction.
So that's 24 degrees. So that's Jupiter ruled. So then Mercury-Mars, captain of the team. That's going to be high potency. You want to probably make sure you don't get too fired up. January 1st for the new year, Mercury stations direct.
22 degrees Sagittarius. So this would be a good spot to look in your chart and see if you have anything from 22 degrees of Sagittarius to 8 degrees of Capricorn, because Mercury is going to be going over that 3 times coming up here.
And then the 15th, Mercury enters Capricorn. The 27th, Mercury conjuncts Mars again. That's 16 Capricorn. Then we have 5th of Mercury conjunct Pluto at 0 Aquarius.
And then the next, later that day, Mercury will enter Aquarius fully.
So that's kind of our preview. Again, we'll put these into the description of the video so that if you want to look at these dates, you can copy them from that. Yeah, that was a lot of information. How did that flow for you? And we went into the archetype of Mercury. This is going to be really important. As we start the new year, we'll have this, well, end this old 2023 and come into 2024 with this Mercury. And so then we'll do a next video on Venus as well, and one on Mars as well, because they're all getting ready to change signs. And then we have our new monthly projection video series that we're doing as well. And the same old Soli Luna thing. So we're trying to begin this 2024 with a big commitment to giving you more material. We have reached 1,150 subscribers.
Woohoo. A lot of you guys with us.
Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for all the incredible comments that you're giving us, and the questions, and also thank you for supporting our work.
Yeah, likewise. Exciting new year ahead. Excited to talk about it more in upcoming videos. And good luck with your Mercury retrograde and integrating this darker time with the psychopomp.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. See you next time.
Bye for now.